Hi friends, welcome to Flutter Junction. And today we are going to create a small application to demonstrate how to send data to the server. And we are going to use the API from request.in, and it provides the free test APIs. And coming down, you can see we are going to demonstrate the register API. So you can see here register, and then we are going to call this API. You can see we have email and password. So I'm gonna copy this email first, and we are going to create this small application so that we can register the user to the server. So for that, I'm gonna paste this URL, and then I'm gonna type the password, and then you can see it's loading, and when the request is success, we can see the token and the ID here. And then when I clear this and then press register, we can see there is email or there is form validation. So this is how our final applications will be looking. And before that, let's discuss about some of the topics that we are going to cover in this tutorial. And the main thing is we are going to use the provider state management package. So what is state management? State management is a crucial aspect of Flutter app development. It allows you to efficiently manage and update the data of the application and the UI. In a typical applications, the state refers to the current values and conditions of various variables, objects, and UI components. This can include user input, application settings, API responses, and other data that can change over time. And then the provider. Provider is one of the most popular state management solutions in Flutter. It offers a simple and flexible way to handle state across the entire application. Alright, now let's create our small project. So I already have my project created, you can see here. And if you haven't created the project, you can pause the video and then create the project and then come back to this video. Right, and first we are going to add some dependencies into the offset.yaml file, and we are going to use the provider and HTTP. Provider for state management and HTTP for making the network request, HTTP request. So after adding these dependencies, you can see here in the dependencies in the offset.yaml file, you need to add these packages, and you can find these packages in the description below, and it is running pubget. Right, our package is available for our project. Now let's get back to the main.dart file, and then let's do some cleaning first. And then this home page, let's delete this, we don't need this. I'm gonna create my own register page. So okay, so to make an HTTP request, we need the endpoint. So for that, let's create the new file named app_urls.dart. Here all the URLs of our application gonna reside. Class app URLs, and then here we have our API endpoint, and you can find these URLs on the description below, or you can visit request.in, and you can see here, and then you can see the request, you can see API/register. Right, now we have the base URL, that is request.in/API, and then we are connecting this base URL and register and making our register URL. So we are going to hit this endpoint. Right, after making the app URLs, okay, let's create the register screen first, this layout screen. For that, I'm gonna create the new file. Okay, let's say register screen, let's make it underscore screen.dart, and then I'm gonna create the stateful widget. And with ST and control space, you can find these options, and then I'm gonna name it register screen. And here you can see we have the app bar, with the text fields and the button. So inside the body, let's create the scaffold app bar of title text widget, and then let's name it register screen. This needs to be B should be capital, and then this cons should be here, right. Now inside the body, I'm gonna have padding, so I'm gonna give some padding to this body. And it's gonna have the child, and the child would be column, and then it takes the list of widget. So here we have these two text fields with the icons here, and with the email form validation. So let's create the common text field for this screen. So for that, I'm going to create the new widget, underscore build text form field, and then I'm going to return text form field from here. So I'm going to create the common text field for this email and password. So I have created this widget. So here we have different labels, different icons. So we need to pass the parameters in this widget, and they're gonna be the text editing controller, and this label and the focus node. That means whenever we pressed OK on this email, and then it directly goes to this password, and focus next. That means what comes after this email, this text field, and then the boolean password. That means whenever we want to hide our password, so this boolean method is triggered, or we gonna use this password for this obscure text true. Right, now let's design our text form field. Right, now this text field consists of this controller, and then this validator. Whenever our value is empty, and then we're gonna return some error message. That means the email or password is required, and whenever the value is not empty, then we're gonna return null. And here our keyword type would be email address. Okay, let's remove this. It's gonna be anything, email or password, and obscure text is password. That means whenever our text field is password, it gonna be true, and then when it is email, it gonna be false. And this focus node means which text field is focused. So now here email is focused, so focus node will be focus email or something. That would be the variable you can define. Okay, now decoration. You can see we have this content padding of 10 and focused border, enabled border, error border, and whenever we have the error, you can see, let's say we can see this color is red, and we have in text label, and then in style it gonna be black with opacity of 5, and then font weight would be this W500. So these are the parameters we are going to use in this text form field to design this text form field. Right, and you can see we have this field focus says method is showing error. So I'm going to create this method focus sense, and it's gonna take 3 parameters: context, and then focus node, that is current focus, and again focus node, that would be next focus, and this can be null and it should be focus node. Okay, right. Now here I'm gonna request focus to the active field, and before that I'm gonna unfocus the focused focus node. This current focus node gonna be on focus, and then the next focus, that means whenever we click OK, then the from email, then it would focus on this password. So this is the use of this method. Right, now we're gonna call this build text form field from this column. Before that I'm gonna need the controller and this focus. So let's create some variables. Focus node, let's say email node equals focus node, and then I'm gonna let's rename it to password node, and then text editing controller. It should be password. Okay, now text editing controller, and then I'm gonna duplicate it, and in VS Code you can use Alt Shift down to duplicate the line. Right, now we have focus node and the email controller, and then I'm gonna create the email text field and build. Okay, I'm gonna okay, and controller would be email controller, and then label would be, let's say, email, and then focus node would be email node, and next focus would be password node, and then icon data would be icon start person, and then this password would be, it is not the password, so I'm going to set it to false. Similarly, I'm going to create the other text field for password. Let's add this, and it would be password controller, and label would be password, and it would be password node, and then it would be null, it can be null, and it can be icon start lock, and let's set its password to true, and then I'm gonna run this application. Before that I'm gonna have to give the home page to this register screen. So in the main.file, in this home, I'm gonna call this register screen. Right, now I'm gonna run this application. Now you can see we have this screen with email and password. You can see there is not gap between this email and password. Now let's keep some space between these. So for that, size box of height, let's give 20, and then let's put some comma here, and then I'm gonna reload it again, and then we have the space. Okay, now let's have some have the button here. So for that, we have the elevated button here. I have created the elevated button, and on pressed we are going to perform the HTTP request. So for now it is empty, and then we have the style and giving the padding of horizontal 20 and vertical 10, and the shape is a bit circular of radius 8, and the background color is blue, and then the child is register. And then when I reload it again, you can see the register is here. So I'm gonna make it full width. So for that, I'm gonna wrap it with a widget, and then sized box of width of full width. So I'm gonna make it media query dot of context dot size dot width. So it's gonna take the full width. Right, now it is a full width. So I'm gonna give some space between this password and this button. So I'm gonna copy this size box, and then I'm gonna paste it here, and then reload it. Okay, we have some space. Okay, let's make this text white. So for that, I'm gonna give color star white, and then reload it again, and then the text is white. So when I click this button, I'm going to have the form validation. Okay, let's do some form validation here. So for that, I'm gonna need the form key. Okay, we have this form key, and then I'm gonna wrap this column with a widget and name it form, and then the parameter key, and it should be form key. And when clicking this button, I'm gonna have this error. Okay, let's make it const. It is showing the lint error. Let's make this icon const. Right, now in on pressed, we're gonna check if these are empty or not. So if underscore form key dot current state dot validate. So this gonna validate if these fields are empty or not, and then I'm gonna reload it again, and when I click, you can see we have this email is required and password is required. Right, now let's create the model to have the HTTP request. So I'm gonna go again to this website request.in, and you can see we have this response coming from this endpoint. So I'm going to create the model for these, and similarly whenever we have the error, we are going to have this error message. So including this, I'm going to create the model. So for that, I'm going to create the new file. Inside the lib, name it register response.tar. So here I'm gonna have this model. Here we have ID, token, and error. You can see from here we have this error from error message, and then whenever it is successful, we have ID and token. So including all this, I have created the model. Right, now let's have the HTTP request. So for that, I'm going to create the new file named register provider .tar, and then I'm going to import material from Flutter, and then class register provider with change notifier, and this change notifier is responsible to listen the changes in this class. So I'm gonna have this register response. Let's import it first. Okay, and then to have this loading state, I'm going to create this bool is loading to false. First our state would be false, and then to have the status code, I'm going to create this status code equals 0, and to get and set the status, I create the new method, and to get we have this status code, and to set register status it takes the integer value and then it sets the value here. Now I'm going to create the new method to have the post request here. Okay, let's minimize this and then remove this. Okay, so what actually is happening here is whenever this method is called, the is loading state is changed to true, and then it notifies the listeners. That means whenever this method is called, we shall have this circular progress indicator here, and then I'm mapping this register data, email and password. You can see here I need to send email and password so that I could get this response. So I'm mapping this email and password coming from this register screen. It takes two parameter, email and password, and then I'm doing the network request here, and I'm okay. Let's import HTTP first, and then app URLs, and then JSON.convert, and then I need to have the method created. Before that, let's discuss about it. So here I'm calling the post request with this endpoint, this register URL endpoint, and with the header application/JSON. That means we are sending this data in the JSON form, and then whenever we have the value, we catch this value on the onValue method, and whenever we have the error, we are catching the error on this onError method. So I need to create these two methods. First, let's create this onValue success method. Okay, let's have some import first. Right, now this onValue gets the response from here, and then we have string result. We return the result from here, and then we are mapping this response body to this response data, and we are decoding this body, response body, and then we are assigning the value from JSON. We are getting the object from here, and then we are assigning this response value into this object register response, and then we are setting this status code to this response status code. We are getting the status code from this response, so I am setting this status code, and then after getting the response, and then status code is 200. You can see status code 200 or 201 is, that means our response is okay. So I am assigning this result, the token, into this result, and setting this is loading to the false. And when the status code is other than 200, then I am gonna return the error message. This error message would be returned. I am gonna catch this error message from here. Okay, and whenever we have error other than this status code, we gonna catch on error method. So I'm gonna create the onError method. So here I'm returning this error. So this much for register provider. So now we're gonna call this method from our register screen, and then we're gonna get the response from here. Right, now let's go to the register screen here, and whenever this button is pressed, I'm gonna call this method. So for that, we need to initialize this provider. Let's initialize first, and here inside the build method, final register provider equals provider.of register provider of the context. Okay, let's have some import, and then the provider. Right, now after initializing this provider, our provider, now let's get back to this onPressed method. Here, when this button is pressed, now I'm gonna call this method from this provider, this method from register screen, and then I assign this response to this variable register response. Then register response dot, then we are checking the response, the promise response. Then whenever we have this response, okay, this should be closed from here and then close. Right, now after catching this response, now I'm gonna check if the response is success or not. Whenever it is success, I'm gonna show the snack bar, and whenever we have the error, I'm gonna show the error in the snack bar. So for that, now here I check if the status code is 200 or not. That means our response is okay or not. Whenever it is success, so here I'm showing the success snack bar, and the snack bar consists of the token coming from response and the ID of the user coming from the response. And whenever there is error, and I'm showing this snack bar with the method registration failed. Right, let's refactor it, and after that we have already done the network request. So now let's get back to the main.dart file. Okay, here we need to provide this register provider in the main.dart file. So I'm gonna wrap this material app with a widget and name it multi provider. Let's import this multi provider from provider, and it consists of parameter providers, and inside the providers I'm gonna call this register provider, into this main.dart file. Import both. Okay, now we are ready to go. Now let's run the application again. Let's make it small. Right, we have run the application successfully. Now I'm gonna check it is validated. I'm gonna go back to this request.in to check the email, and for using this API you're gonna have this email, and without this email you're gonna get the error message. So I'm using this email, but in real case you're gonna have your user registered, and then I'm gonna paste this, and then I'm gonna have the okay. Now I'm gonna click on register button, and you can see token is this and ID is 4. We are getting the response. This ID is 4 and this token. That means we have successfully registered our user. We have successfully performed the HTTP post request. Okay, let's make some email, and then I'm gonna create. Then you can see it is registration failed. That means the user is not validated, so we get this error. Right, so this is how you can do HTTP post request using provider as a state management. And if you have any queries regarding this tutorial, you can ping me a comment, or you can mail me at contact@flutterjunction.com, and you can find this whole tutorial on flutterjunction.com. I already have this tutorial on this website. You can go on your own and read on your own. So in this way you can handle the HTTP post request, and you can play around with the code. Whenever the register is success, you can create the new screen and go to that screen with the this ID and token, and you can play around with the code yourself. Right. And if you love this video, don't forget to like, comment and share it to the friends. And if you want some awesome tutorials from Flutter Junction, you can subscribe and press the bell icon to get notified on upcoming videos. And you can also get the full code on the GitHub. You can find it in the description below. Thank you. Happy coding.